Hi there, I'm Don Moores, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Email systems, computer backups, and other IT topics have been in the news these days as they pertain to the Internal Revenue Service, other government entities, and companies. Aaron Overton from Heatherstone.com is here to explain exactly why all of this is in the news and maybe what we can do about it. Court Watch Montgomery has issued a report calling for the circuit court judges, county executive, and the county council to take immediate steps to reduce risks for children who are caught up in cycles of domestic violence. Lori Duca, executive director of Court Watch Montgomery, has this story. Leveling the Playing Field, Inc. is an organization that recycles sports equipment to children who otherwise might not be able to have access to them in sport teams across this area. Max Lipp, a recent college graduate of Syracuse University, will tell us all about what he's come up as a solution to this problem and making opportunities for a lot more kids. Summer is here, and Montgomery Community Media has some exciting ideas on how to spend some of that summertime learning something while also at the same time having fun in the world of media. Tony Spearman Leach, one of the top dogs here at Montgomery Community Media, has all the details. Welcome back, Aaron Overton. And I have to say, on behalf of all of us, we're very sad. You're heading off to the Pacific Northwest soon. It's been an honor and a pleasure to get to know you through this show. Your insights in the world of IT has been invaluable.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And your Alaskan sensibility of,
right.
of not really thinking much about the town that's closest to us right here. And I think that brings us to this topic today about backups, emails. This Internal Revenue Service thing must be driving you nuts.
Right. It's just the idea that the IRS has lost emails is just
Why don't you set up
patently false.
Set up the situation for us.
Okay, so we the big news in the recent last couple of months, or really since maybe February, has been this discussion around the IRS and Lois Lerner and what she communicated outside of the IRS in conjunction with some apparent targeting of conservative groups.
So the idea is that the IRS, going against what it is allowed to do by law, was using their tax powers to go after certain organizations that might not be in keeping with perhaps this administration.
Exactly. And then so the level of how far that reaches is going to be well demonstrated by the electronic records. Because basically at this point, if you write an email, it's there. You're never going to get rid of it. Yes, you're never going to get rid of it. So there's been a lot of back and forth, and this woman Lois Lerner is right at the middle of all of that. And so, understandably,
now, she's in charge of the section that deals with
seems to be primary. Yes, about this, and she chose to take the fifth in her congressional hearing after a statement. A little awkward there, but still. Now they want to go and dig and find out, look, who else might have been involved in this. So they asked for her emails. The Congress, this particular committee, subpoenaed all of her emails from the IRS. And the IRS came back after earlier saying that those were available. They came back and said she had a computer crash and lost all of the email between 2009 and 2011.
Now, I don't want to get into conspiracies and all that stuff in terms of the politics, but looking at it from the IT world, is this plausible?
It is so completely implausible. It is just that is a flat out lie. Okay, and 2 days later they come out and say, oh, there's these 6 other high-ranking officials at the IRS, and we've also lost all of theirs. Now you know that the IRS would not accept, I lost my records.
Right.
When you're talking to them about your tax returns and stuff like this. And if you look at all the different kinds of technology that there are available for all this, it's just implausible. There's no way.
Now we have the IRS targets with their lists, opening customers up for spams or having their things stolen. There are a lot of IT issues out there, right?
Well, there are
vulnerabilities.
Sure, there's plenty of vulnerabilities, but the thing that we're really talking about right now is what about backup. I mean,
Right.
in the financial industry, with all the regulation that comes from FINRA and
What's FINRA?
FINRA, I can't remember what
But
it
it's
all
the
stands
financial-
for,
it's
but
the
it's a
oversight
financial
group, yeah.
oversight. Yeah, and so, or with the SEC, Security Exchange Commission, they're requiring a certain amount of backup of all of this stuff.
So do you think these emails really exist?
Oh,
and
absolutely,
will
they
be
exist.
dug up?
Whether they'll be dug up or not, it remains to be seen. But they're out there, and I would expect that if Congress is going to doggedly pursue this as they should, it'll come out eventually. We'll get them. We just have to see when.
What can we do as customers or as constituents? Is this something we should take up with our member of Congress? Is this something? What would
Personally,
you
I
do?
think that you should, because the problem is this is not even really a partisan issue, what's going on with the IRS, because if the IRS can use its power to try to influence elections and to stifle free speech, that's bad for everybody. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and the fact that right now it looks like they were targeting conservative groups, that the next time around it could be liberal groups, or the next time around it could be like.
Aaron, aren't
We've
they?
got about 40
Okay,
seconds
okay,
left.
they're in a catch because if they bring these emails out now, they say they crashed.
Yeah.
So now it's like the emails have to disappear forever. But we all know that they have the best redundancy system in the world. Our text documents, everything is there. And now, even because of the ACA, the Affordable Health Care Act, they are tracking more.
Right, they're tracking.
They actually have a more
But
robust
here's
system.
The thing.
20 seconds.
Yeah, the thing that I don't think I've heard yet, but occurred to me this morning as I was thinking about this topic is like, look, we just went through an entire scandal about the NSA tracking everything. Why don't we just ask them? You absolutely know it's got to be over there. So if you have the IRS, just have them go out and pull all the lowest learner stuff, and we can solve the whole problem like tomorrow.
That's the last word, isn't it? It's not. It's rarely the crime. It's usually the cover-up, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Well, Aaron, again, we're going to miss you, and I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you.
All right. Lori, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we go from this national crisis to one that's in our region, in our county, and domestic violence. I mean, I got to tell you, I just wish you were never here. Not because you're not pleasant. It's always enjoyable.
Love to work myself out of a job.
But you're not doing it. You're not doing a very good job of it, Lori. Or the situation is not such that it allows you to work yourself out of a job. What's going on with these kids?
Well, it's very sad. I mean, thousands and thousands of kids in this county are affected every year by domestic violence. So we've had about 42 volunteers going into court, watching 500 hours of protective orders, collecting information on kids. And what we found is really disturbing.
How so?
Judges are finding offenders guilty of domestic violence and then immediately giving them unsupervised visits with kids without asking important questions. We know there's a big correlation between domestic violence and child abuse, and yet judges aren't asking questions that ensure kids will stay safe.
Right.
But the judges can't order supervised visits when no supervised visit center exists. So
Okay.
we need some county services. We have some gaps that the county is starting to take a look at. So
Okay. So there's not a park or something, some neutral place where they could do these visits. I know that used to happen.
there needs to be a neutral place where parents can exchange kids,
Right.
because that's a flashpoint. But then we also need supervised visits where kids can stay safe and are watched by social workers or trained volunteers, and that's going to take a
Just
little
as a
longer.
question, why? I mean, like, if this is a person who's already been convicted of domestic violence, why don't we just not let them? If you don't have the ability for a supervised visit, how about just not letting them?
Well, judges, as they should be, are very careful about parental rights on both sides, and they need to be. And certainly you wouldn't want to take away a dad's right to be with his kids unless there's some strong evidence that that isn't safe. But
And you're not talking about convictions. You're talking about a protective order.
which is a civil protective order.
Civil protective order, a bubble around the
Yes.
the victim.
But we heard about a 10-year-old who said he would kill himself if he had to go with his dad, and
Sure.
kids going to the emergency room with panic attacks before visits. And
Now, there's a website here, I believe, that people can
yes,
learn more.
courtwatchmontgomery.org. We have the full report, and it's gotten a lot of interest. The Post did a good editorial. And
Yeah, I understand that. Tell us about what the Post said.
the Post pointed out that there have been 4 kids killed in unsupervised visits in the last 6 years. 3 children in the Castillo case and another child recently.
Right.
And that the county's basically treating these like anomalies and not really looking at the systemic problem, and that we need supervised visitation centers, we need exchange, safe exchange centers.
But don't you think, I think, listening to the situation with domestic violence, it's hard in some cases because people think of domestic violence as always being physical, but one of the most complex cases that the judicial system and that social workers encounter are psychological, verbal abuse, and so where you start to draw those lines, I think, makes the system so complex. So, how are you helping judges make these fine line calls where they're not always the obvious?
Well, the judges have a very tough job. These are very complicated cases, but the law is very clear about only serious bodily harm or imminent serious bodily harm being against the law. So unfortunately, the emotional abuse is not against the law. Threats of physical harm are, but emotional abuse is not. So,
So if your
but
mom's
of course
like
that's
a harpy, you can, if your mom's like some harpy and like constantly like
Don't go to
pecking
court.
at you,
Don't bother.
That's okay. She's allowed to do that.
I find that interesting because a kid can use social media and abuse a person psychologically, and that's a crime. But if you're doing it in your home, you're unprotected.
It's interesting. And we know domestic violence, now we know that trauma actually changes kids' brains. It actually is physical changes. So,
But this sounds like something new, right? Like, I mean, you're saying that you've done some studies, and did the organization, is it something that you started recently then, or did you start it? Did somebody else start it? What's
4 years ago, it was 5 years ago now, I guess, I was a victim advocate for the county, and I kept seeing judges in court be rude to women, women not getting the protection they needed, very unsafe situations even in the courthouse. So we started this, and we've looked at over 3,000 cases, and have developed some good data. So it's just a question of priorities, I think. It's just focusing county government on what's missing and making sure we get these services set
I
up.
remember there was one study, Karen Orlansky, 15
Yes.
years ago or so, that it's depressing to see a lot of these same issues around. There, at that point, it was a disparity between the district courts that were much better. Circuit courts were sort of Cro-Magnon, and a big effort to try to get circuit courts, and it sounds like we still have a lot of more work to do with the circuit court.
We have a long way to go on all the courts, both in Montgomery County and even more so in other counties, actually.
Sure.
What has the county been doing what's the response you get from county members with this issue?
This will be the last word. You have 5 seconds.
You bet. The county is looking for money to set up these centers, so they're attentive.
So, and let's all be attentive on this issue and on every other issue you hear about on Montgomery Week in Review. We'll be right back after these messages. We're back. Montgomery Week in Review welcomes Max Levitt. Welcome, your first time on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So there you are. As I understand it from our conversations, you're at Syracuse University. You're one of the managers of the football team, and you see all this equipment thrown away year after year while new equipment comes in that's purchased from whatever the name sponsor is, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, whatever. And it made you go sick, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I spent 3 seasons with the team, and we had, probably about $2 million worth of equipment coming in every single year. And my first job, every time I'd come into football over the summer to start the season, our first job was, hey, this new shipment is in from Nike. It's waiting outside for us to put it in the equipment room. To make room for it, we have to get rid of everything. We have to throw it away. We can't donate it because of NCAA regulations. It's very hard for us to get rid of except for tossing it.
Whoa. You can't donate it because of NCAA regulations? What do you mean?
So the university, it's very hard for them to go out and donate it to a program on their own because they would abuse that law. For example, at Syracuse, if we wanted Carmelo Anthony to come play for us, we would have donated all our basketball stuff to his academy in Baltimore, whether they needed it or not. But if a nonprofit such as mine goes to the university, and if I ask for the equipment and if I determine where it goes and take the school out of that whole decision-making process, then it's permissible.
Okay.
That's the bylaw.
Gotcha. Okay. So you see all this, you say, hey, there's a better use for this than the dumpster.
Correct. There are tons of financial barriers to youth sports for underprivileged kids. And what studies have shown is one of the main barriers is the cost of sports equipment. I mean, if a kid wants to play baseball, it could cost him $250+ just to start playing. He's going to outgrow it, not to mention in a couple months.
Now, before we get into this too much, as people are watching, maybe they can go to the website for your organization. What is that website?
It's www.levelingtheplayingfield.org.
Okay.
And we don't just collect from universities. We get a lot of individual donors. I mean, if you're around the county, you see all these youth sports leagues, all these private leagues. Those kids have garages filled with equipment. Those leagues have equipment rooms full of equipment that they're basically refurbishing every year. Same thing with all these private schools. I mean, there is more than enough equipment out there that kids in the DC, Baltimore area shouldn't be kept off the playing field because of equipment. That just doesn't make sense to me. There's more than enough out there.
So then you're distributing to individual kids or to teams?
So
what
it
is
could
your
be
mechanism?
great question. It could be a Title I school. It could be a youth program. It could be a Little League baseball team in inner city DC or Baltimore. We accept grant applications really from anybody, and then as long as it's serving an underprivileged population and they're using that sport to teach these kids both mental and physical benefits,
Right.
then we will be interested in donating to them.
Right. Now you got started up fairly recently. Is this now your full-time gig?
This is my full-time gig. We've been incorporated 501c3 for about 3 years, but I've only been on it full-time for about a year. We're currently looking for our third warehouse in 1 year. Our inventory is well above 10,000 items right now. Just to give you an idea, we have like 5 drums filled with about 2,000 baseballs just sitting in our warehouse, and
Wow.
I mean that can make a huge difference. If a kid, there's a lot of kids who just can't afford their own baseball bat or baseball glove, and I mean you go out in
Where here
Potomac.
does your funding come from? Is it all donations? Do you sell
Donations.
some of this?
We don't sell any of it.
Okay.
It's all foundations, corporate funders, individual donors. I mean, a lot of people, especially in this area, youth sports is really important to them. Me personally, I played BCC baseball. I played MSI soccer.
Sure.
I played Montgomery County basketball. Youth sports was a really important part of my youth development, my upbringing. And it's the same for a lot of people around here. So it's been something that when I go and talk to people about this and they realize there are kids that aren't having that same opportunity. They're not going to the baseball field on Saturday with their family to play and eat orange slices. That's an opportunity every kid should have. And it's not hard to communicate that to people.
How much equipment have you distributed already?
We've distributed just under 7,000 items. We've impacted about 12,000 kids across
That's
40 different
great.
programs in about a year and a half.
Now,
Let me-
do
oh,
you
go
have other?
We have a minute, so these
yeah,
gotta be quick.
What about different sports? Is it just like the core ones, like basketball, and
Everything.
soccer, and everything?
I mean,
Do
we've
you have
donated
archery or
skateboards to linkages to
whatever?
learning programs. We've donated swimming goggles. We've ping pong paddles to some rec centers in DC.
Tennis.
But I think what everybody really wants to know, who really wants to avail themselves of the program,
Yeah.
from the moment they submit the application, how long does it take to receive the materials?
It will
What is the-
depend. If they're just about to start a baseball season and they need that equipment to get their baseball season started, we'll expedite the process. But it's usually about 2 to 3 months, depending on how demand is. I mean, demand is so high right now. People are starting to hear about us and they're realizing, hey, we can save $10,000 on sports equipment. We can use that money to lower our registration fees. Let's do this.
Okay.
Max, thank you.
Oh, thank
What a
you.
great, I wish you the best of
Great.
luck. JDS, Syracuse, it sounds like you're putting your education to great use.
Oh yeah. It's
Thank
been
you
good
very
to me.
much. Tony,
Yes, sir.
Poobah,
We
Grand Poobah of Montgomery Community Media, welcome back.
thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk. I mean, usually over where I'm sitting, it's tough to be a guest.
No,
here.
I'm the person who likes to keep the seat warm for you, and we want to make that opportunity available for more kids in Montgomery County.
Let's talk about those programs. I have to tell you from personal story is I've sent kids here to learn backpack journalism. It has been one of the most impactful programs they've ever had, and they've continued to use that in every facet of their lives. So maybe we could start with the summer backpack journalism program.
Absolutely. We have 2 sessions of the backpack journalism program, and backpack journalism is basically you learn to find your story, go out and get your resource materials, hit your beat, record your story on mobile devices, and then you learn to edit and deploy it.
Right.
And that's where the media is today, multimedia and one person.
Now, people can see some of the examples of it and learn so much more on your website. What is that
If you go to
website?
mymcmedia.org and you go under training, or you just go up into the search engine,
Right.
you can type up backpack journalism and it'll bring up samples of the past several years' works. You know, and you hit a great point. We've had amazing success stories. Michelle Chavez, who's one of our premier success stories, came through our backpack journalism program. She has worked at Univision now.
Right.
She has done CBS television, and she now has a 4-year agreement with C-SPAN. All starting out of this
Wow.
as a simple program. We just had another kid that has just won an award in the national backpack journalism program for high school kids. So we're seeing these kids come through and become the next Don Morris. This is great.
So much better, I hope. Okay, now we've got 3 other programs. I don't want to get caught up because I love
Absolutely.
backpack journalism. But what
And
are the
how
other
many
3 so we
kids
can
are
throw-
in that program? How many kids can you take?
We generally take 10 kids in a cohort because they actually work with real journalists. They actually do real professional interviews. It's very labor intensive and very hands-on.
What level of equipment are they using in the various training programs? Are they using the Bloggies,
they
or
use
the-
Bloggies, and also you'll be seeing later on in the year we will be going back and offering up things like how to do your stories on your mobile device, so your tablets and your phones. So they're a great team here. Now, as you were saying, we got two other
Let's
programs.
not get distracted. We got other
Gotta get
programs.
to the big-
Keep going. Stop it, people.
Kind of tying to my friend over here. Max is right. Sports, kids love sports.
Right.
So we do have a sports backpack journalism program. And, for those who just love going out and I want to talk about the World Cup, I want to talk about the Spurs kicking the Miami Heat's behind.
What was that
I
again?
want
What was that again?
I want to talk about all these great stories, and particularly sports here in Montgomery County are a huge thing. The Soccerplex,
Right.
Big Train, Bethesda, you talk about all of these teams. We want to give these kids a chance at their high school and their communities to tell their stories. And so we've launched this sports backpack journalism program.
Fantastic.
And now, the final program we have that's going to be just wild is if you love the Montgomery County Agricultural Fair,
Who
we
doesn't?
we have video
Who doesn't,
journalism.
Tony?
We have video journalism.
best.
You can do everything from talking about the fine arts to talking about agriculture to if you want to do, a story on the Lumberjills, if you want to do wrestling
I want llamas.
story.
I want the llamas.
And then some people want to do the birthing of the cows, the pigs, and the sheep, and
Sure.
the chicks. All of that's available. And you know what's really important about this for these kids? They will be contributing directly to the archives, the historical archives of the Montgomery County Agricultural Fair. And they also enter the footage into the international fair competition
Right.
that's held for all of North America and globally. And their project is one of the major competitions.
What kind of limits do you have on the participation in some of these other things? Are they beyond
We
the
will
10?
take any kid from middle school through senior year of high school. So, and from whatever skill level. So that's a great question.
So if 1,000 of them show up, you're ready to go.
There are limits in reality. We can take more people in the video journalism program. In sports journalism and in backpack journalism, we prefer that number to be around 10. It's
Right.
just because of the...
But more
the
demand, you
People
can
in the
have more
community
programs.
volunteer
Absolutely.
to come and help with these programs? I mean, I know you have staff manages it, but
Aaron, that's fantastic because you're a great volunteer here. And if you're a person who is good in multimedia, if you're a person who's good in helping the kids tell their story, we want you to come and volunteer. Please call our number. It's 301-424-1730. We really love volunteers here.
30 seconds left. You wanted to say something, Laurie? You had a question?
No, it just sounds terrific. What great programs. It's
Yeah,
nice
really
to.
cool.
well, are you working with any of the other news organizations in the area?
We do partner with the Gazette newspapers, which is, whose parent is the Washington Post, and they are a strong proponent and promoter of this program. So you do work with professional journalists.
I got to tell you, on the ag fair, as Montgomery County has gotten further and further away from its ag roots, the ag fair is such an important reminder about what we really need in this county, what we really need in this country. If there's not food, we die.
You're
And so-
absolutely right.
So getting back to our roots, or maybe even our tubers. Oh, that's all right, because I come from a potato farming background. Listen, I want to
was
thank
good.
you guys. That's all the time we have. I want to thank each of you for joining me today, and I want to thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores. Please join us next week at this very same time.